Welcome to Satsang Conversations, where we journey across the world to the serene and sacred spaces of BAPS Mandirs. This podcast is your gateway to exploring profound spiritual lessons that echo through time, yet remain incredibly relevant to our everyday lives. Each episode brings heartfelt discussions, wisdom, and insights that help us navigate the challenges of modern life with a deeper sense of peace, purpose, and connection. So whether you're seeking inspiration, solace, or a spark to light up your spiritual path, join us as we dive into conversations that uplift the soul and enrich the heart. This week, we travel to North Riding, South Africa, to the BAPS Mandir in Johannesburg, where we'll be joining a conversation with Pujya Snehmuni Swami and Pujya Adarshmuni Swami on the Vachanamrut.
So we've gathered again today for another discussion on satsang life, or life in satsang. And anything with regards to satsang, usually we refer to the words of Maharaj, Swami, and the Satpurush. So once again, we'll start the conversation with the words of Maharaj. Mahan Swami writes the definition of satsang, associating with Maharaj, the Satpurush, the Shastras, as well as satsangis. So Maharaj goes into this discussion and opens up the conversation in the Vachanamrut, Pratham 78, Gadhada section 1, number 78. And he poses a question to all the Swamis and Haribhaktos seated before him. And he asks that we have these things that influence our life. Now, we've done many things in the past as well, which we use the word karma for. And he asks the question that which of these factors influences us more? So I'm sure you've looked over the Vachanamrut. Yeah. And what do you think about what Maharaj says and the question that he's asking?
I think it's like one thing that's very interesting about the Vachanamrut is so many of the sort of general topics are like the satsang gnan and the atma vichar. Those things are almost novel to most of us when we read it first. But this topic of what influences your life, when you read it, it's like obvious. But before you read it, you didn't think about it. Like when I'm in a certain area, I behave in a certain way. When in the evening, I behave differently to in the morning. When I'm listening to different music, when I'm speaking to different people, I do different things. So Maharaj speaks about time, place, company, all of these different factors. And in hindsight, you say, oh, well, obviously. But before you read it, I don't think we think about those kinds of things, and we aren't as deliberate about managing those factors in our life. When we're young, we kind of just do things. You kind of just follow an instruction. You follow your parent. You follow your teacher. You follow your friend. You go where they go. You speak about what they're talking about. And it's only kind of when you grow older, when you start learning about yourself, when you start learning about what you want to do, then you start changing those things. Like some people, when you're young, you go bath at 7 because your mom said. You go to sleep at 8. You wake up when your dad wakes you up. You have lunch, when school break time is. But then when you get to university, there's a sort of common thing that, teenagers wake up late. And it's because you now have a choice in the matter. You don't wake up late because you think you'll be more efficient. It's just like the freedom to now choose. And Maharaj, I think in this Vachanamrut, kind of makes us think about, we do have so many choices. Not everyone has the same choices available to them, but everyone has a choice or a set of choices. And he's asking us to kind of think about why did you make certain choices, or what factors influence those choices. I don't know, and then like when you were in uni, you must have changed certain things from when you went to high school. Like, why do you think some of those things changed?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. I think having that freedom, being a little bit empowered to make the decisions that you did, you sort of it's a learning experience. You think you have control of your life and you know what's best for yourself, but you soon learn, like, where do you benefit and where you're losing out. I think the point you made about these different factors in which Maharaj brought out, it's quite easily explained in like just everyday experiences. Like, when you wake up 5 a.m, as Maharaj says, before sunrise, and you do puja, your puja just naturally, without even trying hard, it just feels like a better quality, right? You're able to concentrate, your Dhyan is better quality, you're less distracted, it's quieter, it's a little bit darker, and these factors influence you. Same with, place. I think even Maharaj mentioned in the Haveli no Vachanamrut, there's all these things that are happening around you. How can you concentrate? How can you have a still mind? So it's quite interesting as you grow up, the more freedom you have, and you learn eventually that you are influenced by all of these factors.
So when I was in school, which was my A levels, which is like 12th grade, I did a project. I was doing English language, and I did a project on linguistic shifts, meaning how parents shift from one language to another, from English to Gujarati, Gujarati back to English again, depending on the crowd that they're with or the individual that they're with. So you see a lot of shifts happening between languages as well. So the influence of others upon that person, you'll see quite a lot. So they'll be speaking Gujarati to one another, and all of a sudden they shift over to English because there's a non-Indian in their presence. Or depending if they know that person really well, they'll shift back into Gujarati again and start talking in Gujarati, even though that person may be there. So there's these constant shifts depending on what person you know and how that affects the individual as well. So that's what we noticed when we did this linguistic shift in English language. So that's where the type of surroundings that you're in has a big influence. And that surrounding, I mean people. If you're really good with your friends, then that will mimic onto you what you do. And if you're a colleague, for example, not a friend, but a colleague that you're working with or you just got to recently know, then you will try to be the better or the lesser than that person. So there's shifts you will see constantly in your life, in your sung that you have.
So yeah, so all the things that all three of you mentioned, it makes sense that we need to first become aware that these things are happening. Nish, like you mentioned, as a child, you do things very mechanically, or you're told what to do, and you just obey. But as you grow older, as you mature, as your thought process develops, you start thinking for yourself. And even when you're thinking for yourself, you don't notice things until it's pointed out to you, like Maharaj points it out in this Vachanamrut. And that's why it's important to read scriptures, the Shastras. And coming back to the point that the question that Maharaj is asking, he says, he's basically differentiating the present tense and the past. And he's saying that we are who we are because of our past. But now, what can we do moving forward? So that's the direction in which he's taking the conversation. And he asks that we are who we are, but how much is our life moving forward influenced by our past karma, what we've done in the past? So in this lifetime, in our past, and even in previous lives, according to our Hindu understanding, that we went through many lifetimes. Our soul, our Atma has been through many 8.4 million different body types. So it's been a long journey. So during that long journey, we've been influenced in many ways. And we have all these karmas attached to us. So with that question that Maharaj poses, what do you think? Like, how would that influence us? And how do you think people think in the world of how we're influenced by our past and our present? What do you think?
There's that, I think, fairly common prasang or story from the Mahabharata that I think Bhishma Pitama had sort of a wish granted that he could see 10,000 lifetimes in the past, and that's as far as he could see. And then on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, when he was pierced however many times by arrows and his head was resting on a bed of arrows, he wondered, like, what karma or what could have caused me to have this kind of suffering? He lived about as pious a life as a human could, and what could he have done to have this kind of suffering in his life? And then it was pointed out to him that, if I'm not mistaken, 10,001 lives before, he poked a butterfly with needles and pierced its wings. So, like, we can always look to the past, but we can't see beyond a certain point, even if you have this, like, divya power, like Bhagwan's wish or Bhagwan's grace, that you know more than the average person. Like, how much? Yes, there's an element of that, but how much can we attribute to that past? It's a tough one for us to answer.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually a very good question, because how do you know if something happens to me tomorrow? What is the real cause of why that's happened to me? It could have been from my past births. It could have been something I did in this very birth. How do you control your life without knowing, what is the reason for these things happening to you? I often feel sometimes, the viewpoint is because, you're born into this world without any sense of control. The household that you're born into, the country that you're born into, the family that you're born into, it's all different for all of us. In fact, all of us are born in different countries, right? And that's the funny thing, is that it's a lot of that is based on things that everything's based on things that were in previous births. And I often feel, for better or for worse, the viewpoint is that we could be victims of our circumstance now, because we're coming into this world with no control. It's as a result of some karma that must have happened who knows when. And now we have to experience life because of something that we have even no understanding of why. How do we sort of navigate that thought that, we are not in control of what's going to be happening to us?
So it's not that we're not in control. The concept of karma, and the past karma specifically, is to help bring some understanding to our current situation and help you move forward. And that's exactly what Maharaj says in the beginning of this Vachanamrut, that, okay, past karma, it's done, it cannot be undone. So what can you do with the situation that you're in right now? That's what Maharaj is saying. And he reinforces that the 8 variables of our life, which we have a certain degree of control over, you have to work on those now, which he says, Desh, Kaal, Kriya, Sang, Mantra, Shastra, Diksha, and Dhyan. So Desh is the place that you stay, that influences you, depending on which country you're in. Obviously, which country you live in, that changes the way you think, your thought process, your culture. Kaal, the time, right? Your age, or even the time of the day influences, like you mentioned, that doing puja early in the morning, where your mind is still clear, as opposed to doing it right after work, where you've had to tell people off, you had to go through work drama or school drama or roommate drama or all these things that have happened to you throughout the day, where your mind would not be able to focus on God in meditation or mansi, in puja. So Kaal, Kriya, the actions you do, so that is the present karma that you do, Kriya. Sang, which is the company you keep, who you associate with, people, which we're always associating with people all the time. Mantra, the words you say or chant. Shastra, the words you read. We're reading many things, sometime on our phone, social media, or are we also consuming positive words like the Shastras? Diksha, who you've accepted as your guru, who you're listening to, taking advice from, trying to learn from and grow from that. And Dhyan, what you're constantly thinking of. So these present day influences, or factors that Maharaj calls them, can influence us in a positive way. It's up to us to decide now how we want to associate with these 8 factors. And Maharaj is basically saying that, okay, the past karma is done. You can't influence that. It can help explain to you your current situation, but now what are you going to do about it? So it's like you're born looking like your parents, but you die looking like your choices. You have to decide what you want to do now. So we have to choose what type of 8 factors we have to associate with, how we're going to be influenced in life.
I think that word victim that you use, like the saying victim of circumstance is really common. But the victim word kind of puts you on the back foot. That like, these things have happened to me. But if we, like, I think Maharaj is trying to say that you're not a victim of your circumstance. You're just in your circumstance.
Exactly.
It's like the example of Dhritarashtra from the Mahabharata, right? He played the victim card throughout the whole Mahabharata. Even though everyone gave him positive outlook, look, if you do this, this is what's going to happen. It's going to be all hunky-dory. But he didn't listen to anyone. And he played the victim game all the way through. And because of that, he suffered at the end of the day. It wasn't the fact that he had knowledge, the fact that he was a king, but yet he didn't take anyone's heed, and that's why he suffered. So I think the sung in here is what's really important, though, who we associate with. And during the day, we associate with so many different types of people. As a sadhu or as a yuvak or a grahastha, we have that different types of association that will always come across, from older Haribhaktas to Kishores to Bardaks to Shishus. So those kind of different types of sangs that we're keeping has an influence on that individual. It's like a person who does Balmandra activities for all of his life. He'll have that Balmandra type of vritti, right? That angle, the inclination, the thinking and everything, because that's what he does and that's who he's hanging out with. And if you're a young person hanging out with an older person, then his thoughts will be also like that as well. But then the question is how much do you take on board? Do you play the victim game or do you actually work smart?
Yeah, I think Maharaj's words are quite empowering, actually, if you think about it. Like, he effectively tells you, okay, you are in the circumstance that you are. You can't do anything about it. You can't do anything about the karmas that you did 5 births ago. But what you can do is really take the reins of your life with both hands, right? And really take control. And you can control your life by controlling the 8 factors that influence yourself in this very birth. So I think like reading it from that perspective is a very positive outlook on life, to say, well, okay, you can't control the things you can't control, but you can control the things you can control, and rather focus on those areas.
Yeah. It's like we say that if you're playing cards, you're dealt your hand, that's from your past karma. It's done. The cards have been dealt to you, but how are you going to play your hand? The empowerment that, okay, what are you going to do moving forward? So, like going back to the Mahabharata example, like when the battle is ensued and Duryodhana feels that his army is losing, he runs to his guru, Dronacharya, and he requests him and asks him a very practical question. He says that you are our guru. You taught us and the Pandavas equally. We studied equally. We learned from you equally. Yet, why is Arjun and the Pandavas winning and why are we losing? So then Dronacharya says to him that I taught you equally, but the Pandavas were born in difficulty. They had more challenges in life. They were born in the jungle. You were born in the palace. You were born with a silver spoon in your mouth. So the ability to digest the knowledge which I am gifted to all my students, all of you, they were able to digest it and implement it, apply it to their life, not just supply it to their hands and theoretically understand what I was saying, which is what you were able to do because you were living in luxury. So although the Pandavas were going through difficulty, right, they were dealt a difficult hand. And they even had to go into the jungle afterwards as well. But they were able to digest the knowledge that was embarked upon them because they took it positively, and the sang that they kept. They stayed connected to Bhagwan. They sought his guidance and constantly, repeatedly went to him for any major decisions in their life as well. So this is kind of what Maharaj is leading towards. And he says in another Vachanamrut that there's 8 factors, of which sang, which is the 4th of the 8, is the most influential. And that's why we use the word satsang, right? We're supposed to associate with the truth, and think the true thoughts and try and empower ourselves that way and have a positive influence on our life through who we associate with. So that's why Sangha is so important. And that's why we have to constantly think about what we're doing.
And I think when we new in satsang, we only see satsang as being at the mandir or being with santo. We think like when Maharaj says satsang, it's that. But as you grow and satsang becomes, or the way of living a satsang life becomes more a part of your day, you realize that the same sort of attributes that you want to imbibe in yourself, you need to look for in others. And you don't always find that in satsang, and you don't always find negatives out of satsang. There's many instances we see where people satsang grows because, yes, they have great influences in satsang, but they also have great influences out of satsang. And those sort of like keep your life satsang centric. I know I had a couple of instances where I had friends at work who knew nothing about satsang. They were not satsangi. They never, heard a katha. But like I had a friend who, when we were at work, we used to go down to the canteen for lunch. And I obviously there's all kinds of food there. And I would just go down and be like, oh, this looks nice. I'd like to eat this. And I'd even be prepared to buy it. And then this friend would come and be like, oh no, Avnish, I was here before and that one has onion. So you can't eat that. And I would feel disappointed because, I want to eat this thing. But this good friend that I made, had a satsang effect on me because he had the value that Maharaj is looking for. It's like Paksh, right? He's looking after me and he's looking after my values. So satsang, Maharaj is not saying live at the mandir and that's satsang. Maharaj is saying find good values in the people around you as well.
I mean, in terms of Sang and maybe the definition of that is, obviously in Maharaj's time, 250 years ago, physical, contact with people was one of the main means of, Sang in a sense, right? Today we have FaceTime, we have WhatsApp, we have social media. There's ways to connect with people that are not physical in nature. Does that definition of Sang, is it different now than it was before? Has it evolved? Or do you think the core, what Maharaj is saying, is pretty much the same?
I think the core is the same. Whether you're physically talking to someone or in social media, from what we've known about social media and its influence on people, it's a big influence that it plays in people's lives. For example, now we face situations where social media is spoiling lives. For example, when people make comments about you, that gives you that hurts people, that gives them a negative thought about themselves. So the reinforcement of positivity is destroyed and they become very negative. And so they go down this spiral. For example, if it's someone who's looking at their own beauty and someone makes a very bad comment about it, then they feel very hurt very instantly. So they don't know how to deal with such situations. So now, even though a person may not physically tell you if he's in his physical presence, but on a social media platform, that's happening. And then you've got the influencers, right? You've got the YouTube influencers, you've got the Instagram influencers. Why are they called influencers? Because they're influencing you to either buy a product or come to a place or join a club or whatever. They're influencing you to do something that's not in your nature to do. But because you've liked something, they thought, oh, let me try it out. That's being influenced by someone who's not actually there in front of you at that moment. But through a social media platform, they're influencing you. So Sang definitely, through these different mediums, has an effect.
I think it just means we have to be so much more vigilant because there's so many avenues of how our lives can get influenced by external factors. I think at some stage you look at maybe 50 years ago, people got influenced to purchase things through advertisements, good old just working on people's psychology and making sure that they're enticed to purchase.
And that's why TVs have advertising throughout their programs. In between or every 20 minutes there's an advertise that might come up, depending on the country you're in. Or if there's a break, that we're in a short advertising. Why? To help you, encourage you to go down that line.
So it's like coming back to the point that Yogi Bapa used to say, Sang evo rang. So we're colored by the company we keep. So let's say, like, I used to be in Chicago, and the Chicago River that runs through the city, every St. Patrick's Day, they color it green, bright green. So just like water, if you pour kanku that we use for achanlo, if you pour it into water, it'll become red. If you pour that green dye into it, the water will become green. If you go to a coal mine, your clothes may turn black. If you're eating after sabha and you accidentally pour dar on your jabolengo, it's going to stain yellow-brown. So we're colored by the company we keep, and usually people, and we associate with people, their thoughts, their influences through social media as well. So sometimes because of social media and the circumstance that we're in, technology, we're associating less with people and more with people through social media. So that's also influencing the way we think, the way we, our habits, our behaviors, our attitudes are all influenced by the company we keep. So that's why, like you said, we have to be vigilant. And that's what Maharaj is trying to nudge us towards. That, okay, these things influence you and you are affected by things, but now, okay, you need to take it into your hands and decide what you want to do moving forward.
Yeah, Maharaj, he's, I think the words in the Vachanamrut are something like the people you associate with, or the people whose sang you keep, are the ones you are close to, but not physical distance. I think he uses the word by man karma vachan, the people whose words you follow, actions you follow, and deeds you follow, something to that effect. And when you think about that, I think it becomes clear that it's not just humans or people that would associate with, right? The thing that affects your deeds may be a sport, it may be a TV show, it may be a book. So that, I think Maharaj, his words are not limited to that time, as you said. It's a general thing that you can apply in every situation, because sang is not, people remain the same. The factors may change, the environment may change, but human nature remains pretty similar through time.
It's like when we have friend circles, right? So obviously in your in your contact page, you will have like 100, maybe 1,000 contacts. But out of all those contacts, there's only like 3 or 4 or maybe 5 who are your major friends and who you will talk with, sit with, hang out with. And one of the researches that have happened over the years, since the 1960s and onwards, in Chicago, Hawaii, and Harvard, some of these research papers that they published is actually on these social aspects of company that we keep. And so they're saying that those kind of friends that you sit with every day, maybe whether it's 2 or 5, but it's those who will influence the way you sit, the way you walk, the way you talk, the way you dress, your manners. Everything is influenced by others in that fashion. So that is a proven. So it's like a social contagion, but the word sounds negative, but actually it's also positive as well, because social contagion can also mean that you can get positively good influence from good friends as well. So like any contagion, we might get a bacterial infection or a viral infection, we'll fall sick. But sometimes we also can get better as well. So in one example would be that if you have a good company, then you're going to do those good things. If you have bad company, you're going to do those bad things. And that's what history has shown throughout time as well.
Yeah, I think the word social contagion is like a really good summary of the whole effect. I also read that in the early 90s, they did some experiments on monkeys just to see the effect of these, on the social activities effectively. And they measure what they call mirror neurons. And that's what they found is that when, they tested a monkey and they gave it a peanut or a treat, and they saw which neurons flared up in the brain and piped up. And they also then, kept that same monkey aside and made it observe giving a treat to another monkey. And funnily enough, those same neurons started firing up again. So it showed like you don't even have to experience something yourself. You can observe the people around you, seeing it through them, and it still affects you. Even I guess the great examples when you yawn. If I yawn, it just catches on to like other people. And it just shows like how even the space around us, even if we're not speaking about things, or we're still being influenced by your presence being around us.
Yeah, so similarly, like similar studies have been done for performing good deeds. So Pramukh Swami Maharaj lived a life centered around the concept of in the joy of others lies our own. Bijana bhala ma apnu bhalo, bijana sukh ma apnu sukh. So in the same way, they've done studies that show that if you see a good deed, then your body releases those feel-good chemicals, oxytocin, etc. So in the same way, like when you perform a good deed, your body releases feel-good chemicals, so you feel good. And that will motivate you to perform that deed again. And then they've done studies that show that even if you see someone else perform that good deed to someone else, you're just an innocent bystander watching it as a third person, then those same amount of chemicals, feel-good chemicals, are released in your body. So you don't even have to perform the good deed yourself. So that influences you to do more good. Just seeing good or doing good influences you to do more good. So, like, the more we surround ourselves with positive influences, then that can take us in a more positive direction. So that's something that we have to choose to do on a daily basis. And like you said, that you're surrounded by the good, the bad, the ugly. We live in this world. Our satsang life is in this world. So, but like you said, like, who do we associate with intensely? Through mind, action, and words. Man karma vachane. So it's like driving, or even if you're walking to school, walking to your class, or walking to work. You see many people along the way, but if someone were to ask you about someone you passed by, you won't even notice because you weren't looking for that. So you've associated with them, you've passed by them, but you didn't associate with them with intensity, man karma vachane, because you weren't focusing on that. So where is your focus? Right? So wherever your focus goes, your energy flows as well. So then you're more motivated to go in that direction as well.
I think Maharaj, one of the discussions in the Vachanamrut was the Munis were answering that our karma is so dominant, such a dominant force in dictating what happens. And Maharaj kind of questioned that, why do you think so? What makes you have this understanding that karma is the dominant force? Because it's very easy to fall into that situation, right? That I got put amongst this group of people, I got put in the school, I got put there. And Maharaj kind of like, he asked that question. And it's such an easy thing also for us to fall into that. We just kind of you hear what someone is saying, you see something that happened, and you just believe it. We don't always validate the information we get. We don't always understand like a bias that came into that understanding. So when you first look at a group of people, or you first watch something, it's very easy to just think, oh, this is great. What can we do to kind of, it's difficult to stop it completely or prevent it from happening, but how do we sort of adjust to that scenario where it's so easy for us to fall into an opinion?
That opinion is because of what the Western civilization have taught what karma is so generally and so lucidly that whatever karma you do, that's what you're going to get. So whatever goes around, comes around. And because we've been teaching that even in our mandirs and everywhere else, that fact is that karmas dictate what we do. But in actual fact, it's not. Here Maharaj is saying its predominance is there, which is the reason why we have a human birth, and wherever we are going to be born, that's fine. But Maharaj says now that you're here at this very time,
on this planet, in this very body. You were born here. Now it's time to accept, and that's an individual thing. That change has to come within yourself, and that thought process has to happen within yourself. And you have to make that decision, where you want to draw the line, how much of that decision do you want to put into action. So two things connect here. Is one of what Swami said is the positive triggers that we need in our life. And that means surrounding ourselves with positive people or positive influences that will help us go onto the lines that we want to be motivated to achieve. So changing that mindset is not changing the environment, first of all, it's changing it within ourselves. And then identifying what's causing our negativity to scenarios. And it might not be all scenarios, but certain scenarios. And how can you flip that scenario into being a positive scenario? For example, Dada Kachar in the time of Shriji Maharaj. Now he had house issues, land issues, and money issues. But yet he was able to keep Maharaj at his home, look after Maharaj in the worst situations, but yet he took care of Maharaj no matter what. Now he had a choice. Now he could have said, okay, look, I can't look after Maharaj, I have to let Maharaj go. But he decided, no, I want to keep Maharaj. Whatever happens in my life, whether it goes really bad and really sour, I don't care, as long as I have Bhagwan. He kept the sun. He wanted the sun. He didn't want the wealth. He didn't want the house. He didn't care about anything else. That's a harsh thing for us. I mean, that's an extreme example. But the benefit is what we see in Dada Kachar's life is that because he had that constant association of Shriji Maharaj, he had that constant sukh, the constant bliss that he was getting, that dopamine rush that we're talking about, all the feel-good hormones that are going around. He wanted more and more of that. And so that's what's happened here in Dada Kachar's case. It's like, for example, Parvat Bhai. Now, he wanted to keep hold of Maharaj no matter what. He didn't care about his food that was taken care of, or whether he had his uttara sorted out, his accommodation sorted out, or did he get his blankets or not. He didn't care anything about that. He was there just to have Maharaj, and that's it. And he wanted that bliss. It's like Laduba as well in the time of Shriji Maharaj. Once she realized that I'm in the most important association that I will ever have in my life, and I found someone so important that he is God himself, that she gave up on everything else that was, what would we call, stress factors, and she gave that all up to have the bliss factors. And so she kept on doing those activities that would give her bliss, and that was association of Bhagwan. That constant association was what was giving everyone that bliss. In the same way with the Satpurush, we see today when Mahan Swami Maharaj came here to South Africa from January 28th to all the way to February 10th, we saw that even though we were all tired and we felt, okay, we want to just go home, or we just want to go sleep, whatever wants to happen, whatever happens in Sabha happens, but I just want to go sleep. But yet we were motivated to have his association. Why? Because he himself is a natural positive influencer. Just him sitting there is a positive influence on us all, because he's lived such a life. And because we're so aware of that, that influence on us plays a big, big factor and a big role to actually motivate us to continue to do more seva, to do more samagam, to enjoy the bliss of the sabhas, to enjoy everything. And we were doing that. Why? Because we're actually getting that bliss. And that was our positive reinforcement and positive motivation to go to sabhas and do more and more of these things. Even though we knew in the background, oh, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. But still, we were doing it. Why? Because we were getting that bliss. And that's what we were actually hungering for constantly, to have that bliss, that glimpse of him. Why? Because we know for a fact from his life, because we've done a bit of research in his life individually, all of us, that this person is pure. And that's where we want to be. We want to be with such a person. And so that association, that sung, drives us to become even more stronger. So I think that in this scenario, when we are looking at the sung that we keep, Jeo Sung Jeo Rang, Kare is the same thing. Like you mentioned in that Vachanamrut, the Satman no Haveli no. Like if you go to a party and stuff, and you're not going to be able to be doing your Mara there or thinking of God there because of the time and place you're at. But if you're with a sadhu or if you're in a certain religious place, the effect of the place, the effect of the person that you're sitting with has a major role in your life to actually influence you to change in a positive way.
I think, Swami, like it's fairly easy, I think, to see that in Bhagwan, like the divyata, the power, the bliss that you get. But there's only ever one person like that we know of on earth at a time. And it's impossible for us to always be next to that person. And like Randan, you can't always be in a mandir environment. Sometimes you do go to restaurants for meetings. Sometimes you go to like people's homes for padramni. It's not always, the ideal environment. And you can't always say, I'm not going to go here because I can't do Mara. So I don't know, Randan, what do you do then?
Yeah, I mean it's an interesting question because Maharaj also speaks about like controlling that's sung through thought, word, and deed, and it holds so well in satsang with Bappa, right? It's an easy example. I think outside of that, I do think in some way we can mimic that sort of environment, right? Like if I look at work, I want to be working with the C-suite of my company. They the sort of the pinnacle of the business. Be getting to learn from them, getting to be around with them. And yes, maybe man, karma, vachan doesn't hold really in that particular sense, but maybe association through, I think what Maharaj is saying is about not having a superficial association with the person that you think is going to have a positive impact on you. So for Maharaj and Bappa, that means man, karma, vachan. That is a non-superficial association with Bappa. But I think maybe at the office, at home, it's about making sure that you have a non-superficial association with them so that you can get that positive, environment and learn from that. I think the interesting thing is outside of satsang and even within satsang, we all have our positives and negatives, right? There's always things that are the satsang aspect and the kusang aspect to all of our lives. And so outside of work, I guess it's even more prominent because, they don't have that satsang element. So is it a case of maybe just focusing on the good? Is that sort of like the answer? Trying to get the good qualities out of people and sort of just associating with that element of them? What do you think?
I think a superficial relationship is necessary sometimes. We kind of need to develop that skill that this person is not necessarily going to benefit my life, but they are here now and they are necessary for the next action I need to do for the next period of my life. I mean, when you're at school, if you get paired up with someone for a project, you can't be like, well, I don't relate to your belief system, so I'll fail this one. It's fine. You need to have some kind of relationship with this person. You can say, hello, how are you? Let's get this thing done. And it's still a relationship. It's still time you spend with someone. It's not time you spend with the Mara. But like it's a skill you have to learn as well, that some people are in your life, not for your benefit. It's just something to get through.
Yeah, it's like going back to all what everyone mentioned, that how to figure out where we are and where we want to go. So we need a certain level of Antardrashti to figure out where am I and which direction am I headed in. And then figure out how am I being influenced. So a certain level of humility along with that Antardrashti, that because many people like to falsely believe that, oh, I'm an influencer and I'm not an influencee. I'm more capable of influencing others rather than being influenced. No one can influence me. But that humility to accept that we're easily influenced and also figure out who we're being influenced by, in which way. So like they say that you are the sum of the average of the 5 people who you associate with the most. Or they say, tell me who your friends are, I'll tell you who you are. So we have to, it's not that we need to cut people out from our life, like the people we have to do that project with, or anyone else who's maybe toxic to us in any way, but it's more about expanding that circle and increase the quantity of people who can have a positive influence on us to take us in the direction of the goal that we want to go in, whether it's for career, family, life, satsang. And that will automatically keep us going in the right direction. right? It's like when we're driving, we see accidents along the way. That doesn't mean we drive with fear and for the next 100 kilometers and think that, oh, what if I get into an accident like that? That was gruesome. And just hit the brakes and say, I can't do this. I can't move forward anymore. What if that happens to me? So we see many things in life, and there's so many things that can influence us, but we need to decide what we want to do based on that Antardrashti. And that's based off of what Maharaj always says in the Vachanamrut. Constantly, from the beginning to the end, he goes back to who we are as the Atma. And we have Paramatma with us, like you mentioned, like connecting to Bapa when he was here, connecting to Swami Shri when he was here. He's the most positive influence we can have. So we have Bhagwan and Satpurush with us, that prapti. And along with that, seeing everything positively and trying to influence ourselves through positive sang, positive people, positive feedback, that will help take us in, keep us going in the right direction, not get us distracted or go on a tangent and just stop everything because of the fear that we may get into that accident as well.
And just come back to your point, you know, when you mentioned like Manson is the only one person in the world who's the most purest, right? But also he's created a samaj where you also have devotees who've lived that kind of life where just looking at them, we get positive influence and we get motivation to walk in their path. We give the example of the devotee from Chicago who passed away many, many years ago, Niril Patel. At the age of 35, he passed away. But Swami in his pravachan said, "Ke bas Niril na je rite karyu, e raste jao. Go on that road as he did. Follow him on that road, and then you will get to Akshardham." So he's showing the way. And there are other Hari Bhaktas as well in their own life who have put things into practical because they want to keep that association. Maybe it may not be a physical association with the Satpurush because the Satpurush is always out and about in his vicharan, but living far away as an individual. How do we maintain that association? Well, yes, we work with our work colleagues, our friends, our satsangi friends, etc. But that constant awareness inside your mind that my association at the end of the day is with Swami. And one incident I want to remember is Rajubhai Patel. They know him by Rajubhai Rockdale from Sydney, Australia. And many, many years ago, he went through a very, very bad period in his life. Bankruptcy, he had to borrow money, and people were threatening him because he had to pay the money back and he wasn't paying the money back on time. He crashed his car because of all this stress, once, twice, thrice. He had half-body paralysis because of this stress. It was a temporary half-body paralysis. But yet, in this scenario, they were living in a rented property in a converted garage. They had a little son, Chintan, who was about 5 years old at the time. They still would do their sevas. Now, he was working and everything. He had to find jobs and stuff like that. Even going through this difficult situation, he did not let no one know. But the funny thing is about Rajubhai is that he still continued doing his seva. His Sampak seva, his Gar Sabha with his family every day, even though the wife knew the situation and everything. But yet he would come to the mandir early on a Sunday, clean the bathrooms, all the toilets. And once the sabha had finished and everyone had left, he'll be the last person to leave from the mandir. And he'll clean the toilets and bathrooms and empty the bins. And he'll teach his son as well, Chintan, better you empty the bins. Now, eventually he went to a period where he started getting better, especially after the Sydney Lakhani. And Rajubhai, he started finding jobs. Rather than doing his own business, he started finding jobs. And he found a nice job. And in that job, he went to a work meeting. Now, this is where control comes in. Awareness of who I am and where I want to be and who I want to keep association with. Now, in that work meeting, it was in a restaurant. So over at lunch, they were eating and having a meeting. And Rajubhai, because of his niyams, that he was a strict Swaminarayan vegetarian, that he wouldn't eat any onions or garlic or anything like that. And he asked for a salad. And he told waiter, his order, please do not put any onions and garlic in my salad. But for whatever reason, while he was eating his salad, an onion piece came into his mouth and he realized that he had eaten an onion. So he immediately discarded the salad bowl that he was eating. And then that evening when he went home, he told his wife, "Okay, tomorrow don't make me any food or anything." So she asked why. And he goes, "I've got a fast tomorrow." So she asked, "Why are you fasting tomorrow? There's no Ekadashi. There's no other special days for you to do an upvas." So he said, "The reason why I'm going to do an upvas tomorrow is because I accidentally ate an onion piece, which is against our vows." So she said, "Okay, fine." She was very supportive. But for Rajubhai to also teach his son the importance of vows and following those vows to please Bhagwan and the Sant, and to have them in your life constantly. He told his son the very next day that I have this fast, and the reason why I'm doing this fast is because I broke a niyam. And so his son realized that my dad's doing a fast, and he broke his niyam. So that day, the mother took the son, Chintan, to school and gave the lunchbox to him. And that afternoon, around about 2, 3 o'clock, when the mother went to bring her son back home, and she took the lunchbox into the kitchen and she was going to clean the lunchbox, empty it of its rubbish, and she realized that the food was still as it was in the lunchbox. So she asked Chintan, "Okay, beta, why didn't you have your lunch?" And he said, "Okay, well, Dad's done upvas, so I'm also going to do upvas." So she asked, "Okay, but Dad's doing the upvas, you don't need to do upvas." He goes, "No, but because Dad broke his niyam, I'm going to do that upvas so that I also remember not to break a niyam." So that's positive influence. Being around those kind of people play a big, big role in how we mold ourselves to become much stronger in society as well. Rather than being influenced by others, we could be the influencers.
Yeah, I think those kind of situations where, like, you may be at a work function or somewhere in company other than a general satsang company, you have to have self-confidence and like a self-belief and a good knowledge of your values, the things that are important to you, for you to make that kind of decision. Because if at the time, I mean, if we put maybe someone else in that situation that Rajubhai was in, where first of all, he's at a restaurant, I presume, and you can order anything you want, right? He made a choice to order a salad because it was important to him. And then, when he ate the onion, he stopped eating because that was most important to him. It wasn't, the feeling shy about the people around him. A lot of us have this kind of fear that your niyam is important to you, but you're shy about, like, how do I explain this to the person that, I don't eat onion, or why don't you eat onion? And, for many of us, it's because my guru told me. And that's not a great answer in today's world, that I'm doing something because someone told me to. For us, for people with a guru, for someone who has done, their due diligence and chosen a guru, it's a great reason for you. But how do you explain that to others? Some people are just, it's the shyness. It's not even the value. It's that shyness that stops us.
I think it's actually associating with those people to get the answers. Like, for example, here in South Africa, Pratham, and he works for MTN, and he just recently got another, promotion, yeah. And yet, when he goes to his lunch business, I think he might have told you guys as well, like, whenever he needs to order anything, his secretary already knows that Divyesh won't eat anything that's there. So she goes, he will only eat if it's from Shauna. So they specially order his food and they give it in the plate and everything, whatever. And Divyesh has that, right? So he's established that norm in his company environment. And I think if we can go to them and learn from them how they talk to their staff or how they answer these questions that their staff may have, then that will help us answer, or the way we want to answer, our circle that we're in as well.
Yeah. I mean, I was once reading online, and there's this woman who's she's a business owner and she's also a writer, and she started the habit of waking up at 5 a.m. to write, and after a few days, one day, without saying anything, her young daughter, who must have been around 6 to 10 years old, just suddenly woke up and brought her diary and started writing. And she writes online about, she had not spoken to her daughter about this. Her daughter just picked up this was happening, and she just wrote beautifully. She said, good habits have a blast radius. That it affects those people around you. Another example is, Mrunal Bhai, who's a BOT member here in South Africa. I remember he used to travel to the far ends of the world. He used to go to Iran and Nigeria, and he has a strict niyam of not eating out. And he would take a portable stove, he would take rice, he would make khichdi on his own while working full-length days across, many time zones and traveling, but he would still stick to his niyams. And I think when you associate with those people, you naturally just get inspired. Something ticks in you that say, like, maybe I should be looking at my decisions in my life and follow some of the things that they're teaching us.
So it's like when, like you said, that if you're clear in who you are, I'm a satsangi, Swami Maharaj is my guru, and these are the things that as a satsangi I do, and these are the things I don't do. So if you're clear about who you are, then that automatically makes you more confident in the things you do and the decisions you make or the choices you make. So then it's not that, like you said, Avnish, that I had to do this or I have to do this. I want to do this, or this is what I do because this is who I am. So I think that confidence and clarity leads to making more wise choices. And like you said, it comes with associating with people and how Sang influences us. That takes us in that direction as well.
And like associating with people, it's definitely inspirational, but there's also like an innovation element of that. When a lot of times when I tell people I'm vegetarian, I remember one specific instance where I joined a new team and they were like, tell us about yourself. So, I'm Avnish, and what's one interesting thing about me? So like, oh, I'm vegetarian. And then one of the ladies was like, but are you okay? Like, is that a health thing? I'm like, no, it's a lifestyle choice. Since I was a kid, I've been vegetarian. And she's like, but like, have you checked? Like, are you okay? And then like 2 years later, it just came up in conversation again. We're talking about lunch, and I was like, oh, I don't have any meat. And she's like, still. And like, you're still okay. Like you seem fine, but it doesn't make sense.
Like, how are you surviving?
Exactly. And sometimes we have a similar ignorance in satsang when we knew that, like, how, if I go to a restaurant, like, must I just not eat? Or like, I can't travel as a satsangi because I won't find food there. But when you spend time with these people, there's like satsang innovation that, like, this is it's not always easy, but this is a way to make satsang a part of your life. You can still travel. You can go buy, frozen things from China. You can make it yourself. You can find ways to keep your niyam. It's not like you have to live like an ascetic life and go live in the Himalayas. There's ways to do it in this world, in your life, without drastically changing, who you are and the way you do things. Just find little ways to make your life easier.
And sometimes, like you said, from what you said, the things that we do in satsang, sometimes they become interesting conversation pieces and add flavor to the conversation as opposed to everyone else who's doing the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great example where on last week, Friday, they were like, what are you preparing for? And people are like, oh, my child's birthday, or I'm going to my parents' house. I was like, oh, I need to learn how to speak in a podcast. and we're like, oh, okay, let's speak about that, because that's something totally novel. Like, not many people do that. So yeah, it does just expose you to totally different things.
Yeah, I think also, Swami, just coming back to the point of the fact that, like, once you have a clear understanding of what you want out of your life, I think there's very few things that get in the way of being able, and you just look for the opportunity, the innovation to be able to support that view. Like, if you're the type of person who's very feeling strongly about making yourself much healthier, you could go to restaurants with your friends, celebrate their birthdays, but that you feel so strongly that you're on this path of health that it's not going to get in the way. And I think if you're eating a salad while everyone's having a pizza, so be it. Like, you're so strong in your conviction that no one's opinion matters. And I think that confidence comes in when you're surrounded by a group of people who like really supports that your vision for your life. And again, it comes back to Sang. It like really it brings back the importance of what you're doing, as well as it's a confirmation, right? Like you're surrounded by people who are agreeing that this important thing in your life is important, and it just gives you like this inner strength to move ahead.
I think it's definitely easier to have that confidence amongst people who support you, but it's necessary to have it even when you don't have that Sang. And I think that's what Maharaj is talking about in this Vachanamrut, that sometimes, all the factors are in your favor and it's very easy to live that life. But sometimes even one factor, sometimes all of them are against you. And even in that situation, you shouldn't fall back and relax or just take the easy route that, this is a situation. I mean, it'll be like this for a little while and then let's see. Maharaj is kind of saying like, sometimes you make the mistake in the moment. But I think, Swami, you said earlier that there's this Antardrashti that needs to happen, that when I took this action, what were the factors at play? And what are the levers I need to play with so that I make it easier for myself next time? Is it a certain group of people that I tend to do bad things around? Is it at a certain place? Some people learn that they'd rather wake up early to study for exam, while others will rather stay up late. So what is the lever that I pull so that even in a tough situation or when things aren't going my way, I can still stay true to my core values?
I think maybe what Maharaj is getting at, that like the quantity and the quality of Sang that we keep. So you have to basically set yourself up for success. That if you, in your downtime or your me time, or when things are going smoothly, you associate with positive influencers, with intensity, with the right mindset, with true intention, good intentions, then when those negative factors do come into your life, they don't affect you as much because you're so filled with positive influence, so that you're setting yourself for success by increasing the quantity and quality of your positive Sang that you're keeping. So that's, I think, one way of possibly doing that.
I think there's a concept they teach in business school. It's called the personal boardroom framework. Effectively, it's sort of like allocating people in your life to be the personal boardroom for your life. So like a business has a CEO, a CFO, and a CIO, and all these roles, and they manage the business. They're responsible to the board, and they're meant to make that business a success. Similarly, you should like think about who are the positive influences in your life, who you can go to during the difficult times, right? Like mentors, people who are there to encourage you, people who are there as your sponsor, people who are there to teach you. And I think we can't necessarily only rely on our own motivation during difficult times, because that's when it gets challenged the most. So if you know you have someone to call, or you have someone to speak to during these times, Sang, it helps you get through, the challenges that you may have.
I had an interesting conversation with a friend the other day who he said he was a smoker for 12 years and he hasn't smoked for the last 2 years, and it took him 7 days to wean off smoking. And with no side effects. So I think a lot of people suffer with like headaches or tiredness or
Withdrawal symptoms.
Yeah, withdrawal symptoms. So like, oh, well, that sounds like magic. Like, what did you do? And he said that he came across this concept called mindful smoking. So a lot of people associate certain benefits with smoking. Like, I go for a walk every 2 hours for 5 minutes to get my smoke in, or, I get to spend time with these people when we smoke together. And this concept of mindful smoking is like separate the consequence from the action. So spend time with those people when you aren't smoking, and then smoke without those people. And like go for a walk without smoking, and then, like smoke while you're working. and understand if it's the smoking that's helping you or if it's these other actions. Like, analyze the benefit you're trying to get out of this thing. And he says, I mean, I'm sure it won't work for everyone, but for him, he realized that, this thing that was actually damaging his health. I mean, he used an app that part of what it did was educated him on like what are the negative consequences of smoking on your body. So he managed to separate these really good things like spending time with your friends and taking like sort of mental breaks in your workday from smoking. And he realized he could get one without needing the other.
Right, son.
Mm.
You got the right son. With the right app.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it comes back to Maharaj's message about like take action and take control of your life, right? Like, and I think that's why that portion where Maharaj challenges the notion that, the predominant factor is your past karma. It really is inspiring. It like really just like reminds us that like, it doesn't matter. Just make sure that you're focused on what you think is important and make sure that you are in control of what's happening.
And that's what Sriji Maharaj did in his time. If you reflect about the social work that he did, how he empowered the ladies who were non-educated, they could not read, write, or anything. And that's how they were kept. But Maharaj empowered them to learn to write, read, do discourses, scriptural discourses, and also become teachers. Then they were the first teachers in Gujarat, in the schools, the Swaminarayan ladies. So he empowered them. That influence brushed off on them. But because of that association.
And one other point that Maharaj mentions in Gadhada section 2, number 51, that even if you can't change your surroundings completely, and you'll find yourself in difficult situations, right? Bad, negative, deshkar, adik, time, place, sung. But he says in that Vachanamrut that if you live according to the agna of the Satpurush, ke Satpurush na agna vishe varte, to ruda means good. Ruda deshkar ne vishe rayo che. So even if superficially the situation, the sung, the influence may be negative, but because you're so connected to what you need to do and follow the agna of the Satpurush, then that will kind of like protect you. It'll be like a force field, a shield around you, not allowing that negative influence to influence you negatively and keep you going forward towards your goal in a positive direction.
It's funny because, ex-South African golfer Gary Player, he has this famous saying. He says, the more I practice, the luckier I get. And, it's a similar concept as well. It's like these benefits, they'll just come. Follow Agna, make sure you're strong. And the rest will just sort itself out. So, I guess, at the core of this now is coming to the point of introspection is a big element of ensuring that you have control. Practically, how do we do Antardrashti in a very practical sense? Is it just meaning sit with the eyes closed and think about your life? How do we ensure that it's something that's very actionable, that is practical for us, and it's something that we can do continuously?
Antardrashti is if you want it in a practical sense as well, you still have to identify your own flaws, where you want to strengthen, what you want to strengthen, and increase in the factors that will give you bliss, satsang bliss, spiritual bliss. And then at that time, you have to put an action on it. So theory becomes practical. So whatever action you do in your Antardrashti, for example, today I want to increase my spiritual reading, my sung of the scriptures. Then that practical element is when, what time, when am I going to start? And that's it. It's putting into action. So Antardrashti is not just to think about the mistakes that you've made, or Antardrashti is not about what you could be. It's what you can be and how you put it into action. Thinking of the practical element, what actions shall I take now in order to improve on that particular aspect?
And it's like knowing who you are as well, right? Like knowing your strengths and weaknesses. Where can I thrive? Where can I excel towards my goal or the direction I want my life to go in? So use that and build off of that. And also know your drawbacks, so then where I may slip up. This is a situation where it becomes difficult for me, or I made a mistake in this situation. So that Antardrashti introspection is has many layers to it. And Bhagavan Swami says in the Vachanamrut that looking towards the Satpurush is a form of Antardrashti, because we automatically see or get inspired to go in that direction, or we get an idea whether we're going in the right direction. And we get inspired just by looking to his life as well. That, okay, this isn't the direction that I need to go in. And then automatically I realize, okay, I need to be going north whereas I'm driving south right now. So looking towards who is at the goal or who is going in the right direction, that helps us easily. It's easier to compare and contrast rather than just, like you said, sit in a room and think about what's going through your mind or what situation you're in. So that also helps as well.
I think Maharaj also speaks about finding your ang, your passion, or the thing that you enjoy doing. He is speaking particularly about satsang, but like in today's world, we're so fortunate that, as our satsang mandir grows, as our mandir develops, there's so many different kinds of sevas we can get involved in. Where when it's a small mandir, the only sevas are running the sabha, or sweeping or vacuuming the place before, helping with cooking. Where as it grows, you can get involved in videography. You can get involved in writing for our Sanstha's publications. So, and sometimes we can get stuck in a particular seva. So I think Antardrashti is also how do I make the things that I enjoy doing benefit like the satsang mandir, and that becomes your seva. Then it doesn't have to be a difficult thing. It doesn't have to be something you don't enjoy. When you get stuck in that feeling of satsang is becoming mechanical, or I'm struggling, I don't have motivation to go, we have opportunities to try something different. And I think that's what's really amazing about like Maharaj's way of building the satsang mandir is it's so dynamic, it's so like variable to each of us that we can make it our own.
And that's what Bhagaji Maharaj did. His environment for him was totally negative, but he created that environment where he thrived on doing seva and doing samagam. And that samagam played the important role of boosting his energy in doing seva constantly, in looking after the devotees. Even those who were against him, he would look after as well. So that element of samagam, the association that you do of the Satpurush, whether it's through scriptural reading or through the Satpurush himself, and taking his words on board and implementing them.
And it's like what Kothari Bappa said when he was asked the question, what is one of your most memorable moments with Pramukh Swami Maharaj? He said the prasang where he had made his way to Atladra, Baroda, and he wanted to have the darshan of Yogiji Maharaj prior to 1971. And Pramukh Swami Maharaj informed him that Yogiji Maharaj is traveling in the villages nearby. He should be coming back in a couple of days, so why don't you stay here for a couple of days and then you will have his darshan. But until then, let's have a chat, let's just sit. And then they went and sat at the steps of the assembly hall. And Kothari Bappa recalls this incident and says, at that moment, Pramukh Swami Maharaj told me that Shastriji Maharaj taught me, Pramukh Swami Maharaj is saying, Shastriji Maharaj taught me that satsang and even life and this whole world is like an ocean. And in the ocean, you can find an array of things. You have the whole spectrum. You can find people who have passed away. You can find things that people who have thrown overboard from their cruises and boats when they're on the ocean. You can find tires, a bottle, or junk all over the place. You'll have an array of fish that you can find. And then Pramukh Swami Maharaj told him, but we have to decide what we want. And in the ocean, you can find gems and precious stones. So he said, Shastriji Maharaj, our Guru, is that precious gem. And we have to focus on that. We have to decide, what do I want from this ocean? And just coming back to Sang, that it's not that we want to say, oh, this person is a bad person, I should stay away from him, and cut him off from our life, or go into your room and just lock yourself. I don't want to associate with anyone, so I don't run the risk of doing negative things. The idea is you live in the ocean, and regardless of all that other stuff that's there, you have to decide what I want to focus on. And that's what it all comes down to as well. And then that keeps you thriving and driving in the right direction.
Yeah, I think, Swami, when we spoke about a similar topic before, you gave this example of when someone is finishing high school and thinking about what environment or what field of study to go into. If your friends are going into an engineering field and you have an inclination to become a doctor, you're not going to just become an engineer because they are. Like, it's important to look at your options and kind of pick out the one that makes sense. Because if you just kind of go with the flow, if you just put your net in the ocean and see what comes, you just as likely to find rubbish as to find a gem. So if you aren't deliberate about, first of all, you have to know what your options are. You have to spend a bit of time of how do I get that thing, and then drive in that direction. That's the way to benefit from a situation. Otherwise, whatever comes, and then you're kind of putting yourself at the mercy of your karma. And Maharaj is giving us a way to empower ourselves beyond that.
And so, similarly, along those lines, that like, I studied pharmacy, so I like to think of things in a scientific way. So it's like going to a pharmacy, and the doctor has prescribed me these 3 medicines. And if I see you in that pharmacy at that time buying a medication that is my favorite color, per se, let's say a yellow liquid that you need, that doesn't mean that I should change in my choices and decide, oh, I want what he's having, right? Because that's not for me. So it's not to say that that medication is bad. It's good for you, but it may not be good for me in my current situation. So we have to be very focused on what I want, and without negating or saying, oh, all this other medication is bad besides the ones that I'm taking. So without cutting all those things or saying bad things about those other medications. So it comes to the idea of that Maharaj says, that the idea of Sangha is not to recognize bad people and good people and put them into compartments and say, and only associate with good people. The idea is to, Maharaj says that you have to understand the mahima of everyone, regardless of how a person is. Because that association, everyone is pure at heart, everyone is a divine soul, an atma. It's just the situation that they're in that they make mistakes. So no one is a bad person. Everyone has the potential to be divine and attain liberation. So we have to understand that mahima, regardless of what situation we're in, and under any circumstances, because of their association with Bhagwan, Satpurush, and this divine satsang.
Swami, just on the flip side to that, I guess part of looking around your circle and understanding everyone's positive benefits and their virtues, I guess, is also considering the elements that could negatively impact your life. A common question is that not becoming abhava of gun? Are you not seeing negative faults by understanding, oh, this person has this flaw in them and I should stay away, or I should, not associate with them in that manner? Does that not count as abhava of gun?
So I guess it's kind of like the pharmacy example that, okay, that medication is for someone else. So that doesn't mean I go to the shelf and throw that medication away because I'm not taking it, because the doctor hasn't prescribed it for me. That medication can be useful for some other person with another different illness. So it's like you have to decide what you want and focus on that. And regardless of what a person is like, we have to understand mahima. The fact that they are in satsang means that they have accomplished a great amount of punya. Right? Maharaj says in Gadhada section 1, number 24, to Brahmanand Swami's question, that if there's Mr. X, a certain individual who is not even suitable to be in satsang, he's giving satsang a bad name. For example, Joban Pagi, right the moment of his transformation, when he decided to start coming to satsang. If any of us were sitting next to him in Sabha, we'd be thinking, let me keep my distance from him, right? Right? This is who allowed him to come? We would be thinking that if we were there. But if you look 10 years afterwards, he may have passed us in his satsang, personal satsang, and we might have stayed where we are. So it's very dangerous to judge someone based on any mistake they've made or any habits that they have or even attitudes that they have.
It's like
Currently.
that Jatulbuna Ganika. An instant change in her life, and she went fast in track into satsang and pleased Bhagwan wholeheartedly. But in the downside of seeing Abhau Gun is that you also fall back as well. You don't progress in any way whatsoever. And then you being around with those kind of people, you also start talking negatively about others, even though it may not be true. And that causes more damage. And that's why Swami always says, and he draws a big cross, no Abhau Gun. And Swami only wants, in his own personal life, when we look at it, he only looks at everyone's positive side. He opts not to look at other people's negative points. And if you talk to him about someone negative, he will not hear it. It's like the incident of Yogi Jima when Dr. Swami went to Yogi Jima and said, Swami, I need to tell you something about this Hari Bhakta. As soon as he said that sentence, Yogi Baba let go of Dr. Swami's hand, got up and left the room. To that extent. And the reason is that he wants to give everyone a chance and let them grow in satsang, and eventually they will change. Yes, there might be someone who might not change at all, but at least at the end of the day, we're not in that situation where we change our personality and make our personality negative towards one person, and that can lead to other people coming into that scenario where we see everyone being negative. And that's why we have to be very positive about everyone. And Swami gives us a solution to that. Swami goes, Divya bhavno vichar karo, badda divya che. Everyone is divine. Full stop, no matter what.
And like Swami said that, yes, everyone has faults. That's why we're here. And the satsang is like a hospital. Who goes to a hospital? Someone who's sick, right? So we've come into this satsang because we've realized we want to get rid of this illness, right? So everyone is sick. Everyone has different illnesses. Someone who we see an avgun of has this specific illness of greed. And maybe if I do my introspection, right, then I'll realize that I have ego. So I have a certain illness that I need to cure. When you're in the hospital, you don't worry about the patient in room 1004. You're worried about curing your illness and getting out of the hospital as soon as possible. Right? You can pray for that individual, but you're not as concerned because everyone is here trying to improve. So having that perspective that, okay, even I have my own flaws as well. So who am I to condone you or say bad things about you because of your mistakes or your bad habits? And the other thing is that we see in Swami Bapa's life, the Satpurush, Swami Maharaj, that even though he knows the mistakes of an individual, Antaryamipane, and even because people become nishkapat to him, they confess their mistakes and their flaws to him. He knows everything, yet still he looks at everyone and behaves with everyone in a positive light. So that's something that we have to try and practice.
It's a choice.
Knowing someone's flaws and still being able to positively interact with that individual. Can I help an individual in need, even though I know that, okay, they've made a mistake? Am I willing to help? So then I'm not just as bad as another person who's made a mistake in their life. So we have to try and be positive in every situation in this way as well.
But Swami, we do need to be aware of people's qualities. positive and negative, but like, where's the line between like, oh, this person is like this, and oh, now it's above? Because Maharaj is saying, yes, no, like, look for people's negative qualities, because those are the people you shouldn't associate too closely with. But so you have to do this thing, you have to look for people's negatives, but you mustn't do above. So where's that line?
So that comes.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
go on.
So that comes back to, I don't know if you're going to say the same thing, but Pratham 24, what Maharaj says, that this person is not suitable to be in satsang. So then Maharaj says, but he is in satsang, or he attends sabha, or comes to the mandir for darshan, or whatever way he comes to the mandir. Yogi Baba said, anyone who even climbs the steps of the Mumbai Dadar Mandir, they've done so much penance, tap, on upside down on their head, standing on their head on a sopari, on a betel nut, which is difficult to do even for a couple of seconds, for thousands of years, thousands of lives. So this person, Maharaj says that this person is not suitable to be in satsang even, but the fact that he is here, he or she is here, means that they must have an immense amount of punya points from their past lives in their spiritual bank account for them to be here. So understand that mahima. And if we understand mahima in that way, the fact that they are here, they must have done something good to be here. And if we understand that greatness, even though we don't see it now, means that will help us stay positive and be happy with regardless of what's happening. So taking everything positively, because that's called sambandh no mahima. Who are they connected to? Right? The example that we give sometimes is you have a train that's going, and at the train station you have many train compartments. And you can have this first class, state-of-the-art 2026 model of the compartment, but if it's not connected to the engine, it's not going to go anywhere. It's going to stay right where it is. But if you have another compartment, which is like the couple of windows might be broken, the AC might not be working, it's like 20 years old, the seats may be torn, but if it's connected to the engine, then it's going to get to the destination. So it's like that we have to see the connection, that who are these people connected to? And then even if they could be a negative influence in a certain way, or they've made mistakes, we see them in a positive light and take the positive from that individual. Swami Maharaj gives this one example, and he says that if you had a huge pile of sand and you take a small bowl of sugar crystals, and you toss it into the sand and you mix it up a little, and any of us were assigned to find those sugar crystals, that sugar, we would not be able to do that. Mm-hmm. There's no magnet that can do that. But if you call Mr. Ant, right, and he comes, they have some sort of sensor where they will go directly to the sugar, and they'll signal to their family members, and the whole army of ants will come in a line, and they'll find each and every one of those sugar crystals from that huge pile of sand. So Swami Maharaj gives this example and says that we have to try and become like this ant and look at the positive, even if it's a small bowl of sugar in this huge pile of sand, negative sand. So we have to try and look at the positive, and then we will automatically begin enjoying any aspect of satsang that we do. Sorry, you were saying?
Well, you have to think of the guna as well. Like gunu vicharu, what Swami is saying, like the ants. If we think of everyone's positive qualities, everyone has some sort of quality that we have to look for. And that's part of our sadhana and our responsibility of making sure we don't spoil our own satsang in any way whatsoever, our spiritual progress in any way whatsoever. So that's why Prabhu Swami used to say in many of his sabhas, if one finger is pointing at someone, 3 fingers are pointing back at you. So when we see 3 fingers pointing back at us, see 3 of our own faults rather than that one fault. If we're seeing 2 faults of someone, see 6 faults of your own. And then once you see your own faults, what are you going to do about it? Do your action project on that and try and correct what you need to do. So Sang in that way helps us as well. The Satpurush who gives us these examples gives us this way of life as well. And then he helps us identify what we need to. So there's a very clear line of abhau gun. How much do we want to take? Well, you see the negative points, but then we haven't been given the authority to think about those points. We haven't been given the authority to discuss those points, and we haven't had the authority to discuss those points with anyone else, not even with yourself. Once you see it, out of your mind. Okay, this is this person, he will progress, I must progress now.
And we don't have the capability of improving that person. Only Bhagwan and Satpurush do. So think of it that way, that even if I try and change someone else, I can't do so. I don't even have the capability of improving my own life. So the more I focus on myself, then automatically others' faults won't bother me as much and won't influence me as much. Right? We say obstacles are those things you see when you take your eyes off the goal. So the goal for me is to improve myself and me stay focused. And then automatically the other things which can be distractions won't distract me as easily. Right? It's like you mentioned going on YouTube. Right? If you want to become the best chef, then you know which channels to go to. So you don't waste time. Whereas if you start clicking away, you go down that rabbit hole and you'll end up wasting 2 hours and you wouldn't have learned anything about what you want to learn about.
So Swami, I guess in summary is the element of sung around, okay, you associate with good people, but in the end we all have flaws. But by just looking at the positives in everyone, we sort of like extracting that positive influence onto us. And by ignoring any other of their drawbacks, we don't get negatively influenced. So is that effectively what Maharaj is saying when associate with the right positive people in life?
And that extends, as we said earlier, not just to people. As Snehmuni Swami said, that in everything we do, we need to apply it positively. Every skill we have, we need to apply it for the benefit of us, of our Satsang Mandir, of our workplace. Because that's, as we said, Sang isn't just of people. Sang is of, your devices, what you read, what you think. I think what's amazing is that we focus so much on people, but we can take out that word person and put technology or device or anything in its place, and the same sort of concept applies.
The same equation comes out.
And I think it's in a way that there's so many more distractions now. There's, on the flip side, there's so much easier ways to access Sang, right? Like Maharaj's time, it was like physical or written, handwritten, or books or things like that. Now we have like apps. We have the Vachanamrut in our pockets, technically. We have Gadhada on YouTube and all of these things. So I guess if we make the right decisions, it's much easier to have good Sang now than it's ever been, technically.
It's like what Swami mentioned. You have to organize your time and your day, certain slots of your day to connect to positive influences and set yourself up for success in that way with the mediums that we have available at our disposal.
Yeah, like there's so much discussion about generative AI and all of these like amazing tools that can save you time and make things easier, and you don't need a lawyer, you don't need a designer. But yeah, that stuff is there and it is useful, but you need to think critically about it. You can't just let these things happen to you. You can't just take something in without seeing its benefits. And like, yeah, you could just take a ChatGPT contract off and give it to someone, but it's fairly likely that there's a gap in there because it's not tailored to your use case. Hopefully one day it'll get there, but I think the reality is it's not there now. So if we just blindly trust whatever guidance comes without knowing who is this person, where did it come from, what are their skills, we're probably going to go astray.
Bringing back to what Maharaj is saying, that the ball's in your court. And you have to decide to proactively take control of your life and understand that everything is under Maharaj's control. So we have help. It's not us on our own. Right? We have these tools with us. We have the Satpurush with us. We have the Satsang environment, Swami's Hari Bhaktos that we can bounce ideas off of, get inspiration from, right? even though we're Swamis, we gain inspiration from Hari Bhaktas every day. Like Swami mentioned Miro, right? I was in Chicago with him. And to see his stability in the difficult situation that he was going through, over 70 operations, and him being so positive, he was just so locked in and focused. So associating with the right people, the Sangh, and amidst the Sangh that we keep, trying to stay true to who you are. We have to decide who I am. I am an Atma, I am a Satsangi, I am Swami Satsangi. And that will help us make the correct decisions that we need to do, the correct decisions to keep us going in the positive direction, and we have our life going in the direction that we want it to. And all these tools that we mentioned, that through our phones, social media, there are positive ways to use these things. So it's just up to us. The onus is on us as an individual to decide how to use what we have, the tools that we have, the Shastras, the words of Maharaj, Swami. And today we have the opportunity to associate directly with the Satpurush on a daily basis. Every other day we upload videos of Swami Shri's Ashirvad, where he is, and Guru Hari Darshan. So having that positive influence in our daily lives is what we have to sprinkle it throughout our day, in the morning, in the afternoon, once at work, in the evening, at night, before we go to sleep. And that'll keep us, even if we go off track, it'll pull us back on track. It's like driving. You're constantly adjusting the steering wheel 1 millimeter, 2 millimeters, even though the road is straight. So that's basically what we have to do in life and in satsang. Constantly adjust that steering wheel with these tools of satsang that we have, with Antardrashti, Mahima, Prapti no Vichar, all these things.